We stack them up, cut out the windows and doors, bring in Thomas concrete truck to do the liquid concrete. Blocks are filled with that concrete. We attach hardy plank on the outside, sheetrock on the inside, and the houses are 60% more energy efficient than stick-built homes. Again, leadership and innovation are key. And while we're proud of what we've accomplished in our 36-year history, we're now embarking on our biggest project ever. We call it Micah's Creek Homeownership Opportunity Project. We plan to build 63 houses, which will include 37 houses for families, 15 houses for homeless college students coming out of the foster system in Lydia's place, and then 11 tiny homes for veterans and artists. We're targeting residents in inner East Athens for home ownership because they've not had that privilege. We're not seeking to bring in folks from Atlanta. This is not a gentrification project. We're trying to do what we can to fight gentrification in inner East Athens. We've enlisted the help of the University of Georgia Family and Consumer Sciences to come and help us to do a longitudinal study, 5 to 7 years, to study the grades of the children in this neighborhood who will be going to Gaines Elementary School. We'll also study health, economic and social factors, which will result from home ownership. We'll publish this study of scientific data, and now we think that after this publication, this project can be replicated across the nation. We've secured non-federal funding to solarize 7 of these homes already, and we hope to solarize the entire neighborhood. Here's what Micah's Creek can teach us. We must find solutions which lower the threshold for home ownership by reducing the initial purchase and removing the burden of mortgage interest. We must reduce the ongoing cost of home ownership through efficient construction practices. We must generate additional funding for future cost manageable housing. And we have to underscore the benefit received by states and municipalities by replacing the need for open-ended, indefinite funding with one upfront investment. This specific model produces additional property tax revenue, and that, along with increased local spending of disposable income, produces a reduction in the demand for public assistance. Key elements of this model are many. We target families who are 50 to 80% of area median income. Nonprofit construction with initial upfront investment, federal, state, and local level. We build at a significant scale rather than just build an individual house here and there. We want to build neighborhoods. Locating neighborhoods in school attendance zones with documented achievement gaps are preferred. We want to continue to offer no interest mortgages in order to remove the single most significant barrier to entry for potential first-time home buyers. Mortgage payments then get reinvested into our revolving fund to produce an exponential return on investment to build more houses. We retain a right of first refusal so that houses will not be flipped on the private market. We provide efficient construction to reduce the long-term overall cost of home ownership. We have a formal preparation of first-time home buyers for the requirements and experience of home ownership. There are a lot of benefits to the neighborhood, which we will call Micah's Creek. I'd like to close with 2 goals, and then what we at Habitat view as deterrents to reaching these goals. The first goal, put more doors in the market. If it really is supply and demand, if that's a significant factor for the housing crisis, let's put more doors in the market. That'll stabilize and or reduce the pricing. It'll also provide a price ladder. As folks move up the ladder, lower cost housing gets freed up. Changes that will help put more doors in the market include: set the minimum house size to be less than 400 square feet. Permit construction of duplexes, triplexes, quadruplexes, townhomes, cottage courtyards, and single-family zones. Allow residential subdivisions with flagged lots. Reduce minimum road frontage requirements for residential lots. Permit small multifamily structures in any residential zone. And I echo what has been mentioned. Permit accessory dwelling units. Essentially, the government should remove barriers to construction that have no effect on life, health, or safety. Innovation in land use and construction techniques is paramount to the success of housing in Athens. The second goal, let's see what we can do to reduce the cost of housing. Here are some things we can do. Remove codes on the books that do not address life, health, or safety. I heard about 4 of those today in my office. Be innovative with land use in the smallest county in the state, with a significant percentage of land owned by nonprofits, including the University of Georgia. Remove many minimum parking requirements for multifamily structures that are served by public transit. Remove setback requirements on residential dwellings. Remove height restrictions on residential structures. Increase density limits on areas zoned for residential. Increase processing time limits on applications for permits. Reduce permits, regulatory fees applicable to construction of ADUs or multifamily structures. And remove maximum lot coverage applicable to residential dwellings. We will make these same requests to those who need to hear it. Athens Area Habitat for Humanity continues to want to address the housing crisis in our community. We want to lead innovatively to provide cost-manageable housing, and we're grateful to partner with so many
of you. Thank you, Charles. So next up is Marquita Swain with the Athens-Clarke County Housing and Community Development.
Say that my name is Marquita Swain, and I am the Affordable Housing Administrator for HCD. We have 18 full-time positions, and we have some of our team is represented here today. We have our housing coordinator, Solomon Smothers, and our assistant director, Alejandra Cova. And so I appreciate you all being here today, because I can't do this by myself. It takes all of us to do this. So basically, as far as our affordable housing, and I don't know if we have the presentation. No, okay, all right, that's fine. So we provide affordable housing, which is defined by HUD, as you've heard many others say, that because we receive federal funding, that definition defines how we can allocate those funds. And 2 of the programs that we receive funds for is CDBG, that's our Community Development Block Grant, and our home program, our Home Investment Partnership Program. Those are funds that we currently receive as an entitlement community for Athens-Clarke County. And so with those funds, we address affordable housing needs for low to moderate income residents in Athens-Clarke County. We have an income limit that HUD provides, and it is updated annually. The income limit is basically is broken down as low income, extremely low income, and low income. Low income is 80% or less AMI for Athens-Clarke County. It's important to note that Athens-Clarke County is made up of an MSA when it comes to determining income limits. And so that includes Madison County, Oconee County, and Overport County. And so a lot of times we get asked the question, why is that income limit so high? And it's because all of those counties are combined together to determine the average household income. Because we allocate the grant funds, as I previously stated, CDBG funds particularly are used to do many things within Athens-Clarke County. We address affordable housing and redevelopment. We address economic development. We address public services as well as public facilities. I'm going to talk specifically about the CDBG dollars used for affordable housing. Those funds, there are many eligible activities that those funds can be used for, but most of the time here in Athens, we use those for acquisition, we use them for demolition, and for rehab. Those are our primary areas for CDBG housing dollars. In addition to that, we also have allocated down payment assistance funds using CDBG dollars. Athens, Clark County Housing and Community Development does not provide those direct services. We basically sub-grant those funds to local partners here in the community. And so basically they provide the direct services for entities here in Athens. There are many partners that we have. Charles mentioned partnering with us with Habitat for Humanity. They have a repair accessibility improvements program that they receive CDBG dollars for, and to address the need for repairs in the community. Athens Land Trust provides down payment assistance for their first-time home buyers who are interested in purchasing homes through their program. In addition to that, Historic Athens has a rehab program that they use CDBG dollars to address elderly historic homes in the community. And so these funds go a long way, and they have served the community well. There's never enough funds to address the need in the community. And so we do what we can. I'm pleased to say that these funds have increased over the years. I've been with ACC Gov for 12 years, and when we first started, we haven't always received the amount of funding that we currently have. And so it's been up and down over that time, but it's good when you do the work and use the funds well and perform well, that HUD is able to provide you with additional funding for the community. I'm going to touch a little bit on the second program that we manage, is the Home Investment Partnership Program. This program provides new construction funding to build new affordable units here in Athens, Clark County. That can be single family units as well as rental units. New construction, as we know, is very, very expensive. And a lot of times we don't have enough funding to do a project total cost. So home requires that an entity invest funding themselves into the project. And we call that gap financing. We leverage private and public funding with the federal dollars of home to create these housing projects in the community. Some of the examples, we had some pictures, but some of the examples that we've used these projects for, I'll just give you an example if you are familiar with the layout of the Athens area and the census tracts. Home dollars, it was $580,000 was awarded to Athens Land Trust to rehab the historic McBurney House located on Reese Street. It was a single family home, and they converted that home into 4 one-bedroom, 1-bath apartments. And so that was a major undertaking, because remember I said it was a historic home, so there was a lot of red tape, a lot of historical preservation requirements that they had to maintain in converting that home to 4 apartments. We've also used home dollars in the past to help build Athens Housing Authority Savannah Heights, homes in that neighborhood. They currently also was awarded funding for FY25 to build some additional homes, and that's located on the east side of Athens. And Athens Land Trust, they use home dollars as a SHODO. And SHODO is basically where it's a particular organization that provides and addresses housing needs for their local community. And so there are different requirements that a SHODO must meet based on their board, based on their mission, based on the representation for low income. All of those things are considered. And so they have used those dollars to build several homes throughout Athens. Dublin Street comes to mind. They're building those homes. They completed 3 homes with the home investment money, and they're using ARPA dollars to also build additional homes as well. And so, again, home is very complex, but it is a good way to, again, use federal funding in addition to local private partnership funds to be able to utilize those funds. And then I'll say this also, Columbia Brookside with Athens Housing Authority, we were able to invest home funds in phases 1 and 3. And so home dollars didn't go into the entire 100 and whatever number of units. Home just represented a small percentage of the assisted units. And so for phase 1, I believe it was 10 home assisted units. And for phase 3, it was 7. But those were $1 million contracts. And so they used other funding, low-income housing tax credits and other funding to be able to build those larger multifamily developments. In addition to that, I want to touch briefly on our ARPA funding. Everyone knows that ARPA is the American Rescue funds that we received after COVID, and HCD went into, I guess, a shock because we were used to managing maybe $2.5 million, upper of 3 with general funds, and then all of a sudden we had over $30 million that we had to manage. And so these funds have been allocated for many different reasons and purposes, from affordable housing. We have new construction with Habitat for Humanity. They just had a home dedication on Peter Street for a family, and that's just one of their units. They're building 10 units with ARPA dollars. We have Athens Land Trust. They're using ARPA dollars to build new homes on Dublin and Hawthorne Extension. And so there's just a lot of good work that is being done to address the affordable housing needs in the community. EADC, East Athens Development Corporation, they're using ARPA dollars to build 2 rental single-family homes on the east side. Those units are up and they look really good. And so, it takes a village to be able to build these homes and build these neighborhoods. It's not an easy process. And so I will just stop there. I just wanted to touch on the affordable housing, but ARPA dollars, they're addressing youth, economic development, down payment assistance. There's a lot of good work that's being used with those funding. And then the last thing that I wanted to briefly touch on is the fair housing. So HCD has been hosting fair housing events as long as I can remember. And it is important that we continue to address fair housing. We, in addition to participating in other community fair housing events, HCD hosted two fair housing events this month, in addition to a community resource fair on Saturday. And so it's very, very important that we continue to educate the community on tenants' rights and ways to avoid being discriminated against housing. And so we had a presenter come in from Atlanta Metro Fair Housing. They've been in business for over 50 years, and so they were able to really provide some good information so that the residents can know what to look for, can better understand agreements that they're making when it comes to their housing needs and housing. And lastly, in conclusion, just to make sure that the key takeaways that we wanted to communicate, and this is something that our executive director, Belinda Lord, she wasn't able to be here today, but she just wanted us to stress that HCD manages federal dollars that we receive. Some dollars come from HUD, that's our CDBG and home. Other dollars may come from the Treasury, like the ARPA dollars. We also receive COC funds that address homelessness. And so those funds are the bread and butter of HCD. And we try to use those funds and be wise with those funds to make sure that we are taking into consideration the needs of the community. In addition to that, we use ARPA funds. We completed an affordable housing strategic plan. We've used that plan to guide us as we move forward with dollars that have been allocated for acquisition strike fund, for single family, as well as for our inclusionary zoning. And so the goal with that is to take the recommendations from that affordable housing strategic plan and to use those dollars to create a plan forward. One of the suggestions has been to reactivate Athens Clarke County Land Bank Authority so that we can utilize some of the properties that we currently own and maybe have future developments. Other suggestions have been to create a housing trust fund so that we can have a place to put these funds and be able to help and incentivize developers to create more affordable housing here in Athens Clarke County. And so, low-income housing tax credit, gap financing fund, acquisition strike fund, and the single family affordable fund. And then fair housing. Again, we will always continue to support affirmatively furthering fair housing so that everyone can be treated fairly when it comes to housing and have adequate housing, safe housing. Thank you.
All right, so next, we'd like to invite Rose McClanahan with First American Bank.
Good evening. How's everybody this evening? I'll take this thing out. Too low. My name is Rose McClanahan. I'm the CEO of First American Bank, headquartered here in Athens. I think that, from what I've heard so far tonight, we've heard from nonprofits. We've also heard from the public sector, and I think one component to long-term viability of affordable home ownership is really the private sector also, and that's where the traditional financing comes in and private investment, and that's kind of the piece that we haven't really talked about. And quite frankly, I'm not sure I'm 100% ready to talk about all of those things. I think Charles, you laid out a lot of different ways that we can make homes more affordable. one of the beautiful things about Athens is the University of Georgia, but it's also one of the main contributors of lack of affordable housing. And whenever an affordable house may come up, it's swooped up by the individuals that are looking to turn around and create a passive income stream from one of our bright students down the street, but it creates this problem where the inventory practically does not exist. HCD does have the ARPA grant money. We're managing one piece of that, and that's with our home program, and it's the affordable housing program. It's really stemmed from the Athens Justice and Memory Project Affordable Housing Preservation Initiative. And when we were having initial discussions with Alejandra and her team, one of the things that we immediately saw was that this program probably is not going to work in its existing format because we've heard about the AMI limitations, which are really closely mirroring, if not an exact image of the HUD requirements. And because there's not truly affordable housing, when you start limiting income, then your equation doesn't work. You have to have an affordable house, and you have to have income that's not too high to be able to qualify for that. So one of the things that we did build in, so we struggled because we really wanted to, we sat down with Hattie Whitehead day one, said we want to execute this based on what, the 80% AMI for the qualified census tracts within Athens Clarke County, 65% for non-qualified census tracts, and we weren't getting any traction whatsoever. In fact, the only traction we were getting was with Athens Land Trust because they were being able to subsidize the cost of the house. So now we could use a subsidized house in terms of the amount of the house with those income limits. We did build into this on day one the ability to increase that threshold, which kind of goes against what the initial thought in how those funds were going to be allocated, and we knew that we were going to have to do that to effectively use those funds. And so we just recently, I think about a month ago, increased the AMI limit to 120%, and we're getting certainly getting more traction out there in terms of being able to couple the income requirements with the house. But the issue still is the affordability of the house, and that's kind of what Charles had his rapid fire, bullet points at the end in terms of how do you bring down the cost of the inventory that's out there that's available for people who want to have an affordable house. So just for your information in terms of the home program, and I'm happy to send a PDF of the program itself in its existing format. Basically, it's got to be an Athens Clarke County resident. They cannot have owned a house within the last 3 years, so it's supposed to be first-time home buyer. There's a little leeway as far as that's concerned. The homeowner has to go through HUD certified training, which we're currently utilizing Athens Land Trust for that training. They've already got a program that's up and running and providing that training for the applicants that we're getting. And they have to put $1,000 in of their own money into the house. One of the things that we do have access to is additional layering of funds. So the home program is 10% of the home purchase up to $25,000, which is great. I mean, that goes a long way to reducing the cost to that homeowner. We've been layering the Federal Home Loan Bank, since we're a member of the Federal Home Loan Bank. They also have a program, and it mirrors the HUD guidelines. So the two programs kind of lay on top of each other, hence the layering. And that this year they've actually increased it, so it's another $17,500 to go on top of the 10% or $25,000 limit. So $250,000 house could get up, well, I'm gonna look at it on my piece of paper so I don't give you the banker math. Well, it's not on this. You can do the math. It's it's around $40,000 of down payment assistance, which is really good. And once again, it goes a long way. But unfortunately, we're still, and it's not unfortunate because we've got great partners ourselves. But right now, it's really the inventory is coming from the Habitats of the world, the Athens Land Trust, and Athens Housing Authority. Ultimately, so big picture, we've got to be able to figure out that the inventory and how much it costs. And I don't think that there's a very easy solution, but in my opinion, the solution does need to combine the efforts of the wonderful nonprofits that we have, as well as our local government, federal government, state, and but also, almost as importantly, the private sector, because the private sector does have a vested interest. We should have a vested interest that our community, our citizens within the community, our employees have an affordable way to home ownership, which is the number one way to build net worth. And so I didn't prepare anything today. That's all I have, unless, certainly, Buck, if there are any questions related to that program. I think I covered the program for the most part. But thank you for inviting me to come, Sally, and thank you for all of the prior presenters. I think one of the key terms that Sheila was maybe the first one to use is continued investment. And I think that to have long-term affordable housing, you're going to have that continued investment, and it's not just the dollars, but it's the investment of everybody in this room to come up with that solution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I'll take that mic. I'm gonna hand it to Sally. So a couple of house rules. We have to be out of here no later than 8. We'd like to be done by 7:30. So that means we've got about 15 minutes for questions from the audience. Sally? And then we're going to have some closing remarks from Commissioner Thornton.
Hi, my name is Heidi. I'm the director of a fatherhood program that falls under Action Inc. There's about 4 that fall under there. One of them is the ACE workforce. We partner very close together. Our participants are men incarcerated and men who are going through a year-long recovery. Our biggest problem, believe it or not, is not finding them a job because of what we provide them. But let's be specific to Athens, because I can talk about Newton, Jackson, all kinds of counties. We serve the jail, ACC jail, the CI, the prison there, and the diversion center, which you see right up front on Lexington. Our biggest problem is finding them a place to live. We get them so trained up between the forklifting and the welding, which comes with OSHA 10, CPR, everything they need, cranes and rigging, to get a job out there. Some of these guys are making more than I am, and it's wonderful. The biggest problem is the no criminal background. So for us, it's devastating because they get very encouraged, and then when it comes time to step out of the facility, it's hard to find a place to go because of the no criminal background. So I am here to learn and soak in everything you're doing. And if there's anything you can help us with, or where to lead these guys, because I promise you, if you were sitting next to some of them, it would just amaze you. There's no certain type, I should say. It's all walks of life that sometimes make a mistake. And we go to these things, we're going to head up to DC. And so we just try to get as much partnership as we can and see if any of you have any suggestions for us, partnership for these guys. Even the guys that are down in Jackson County at JCCI, a lot of them work up here in Athens, Clark County. We also serve the Palm House. I don't know if you're familiar with the Palm House Recovery Center over there off of, I think it's Oglethorpe. And these guys are working, and so are Diversion. And so the whole time all of you were speaking, I was thinking of those two in particular, because they learn how to save money. They go through our 30-hour fatherhood program, which 6 hours of it is financial assistance. But it's just so devastating, you guys, when it's time to open the door and let them out. You can't find a place to stay because.
I know we've got a lot of smart resources in this room.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that, right, you've got clients who are learning great job skills,
Great job.
right?
And they stay with us for 12 months.
Yeah.
That's always the thing
And
we
it-
keep hearing.
And then the challenge is finding housing.
Yes, sir.
So with all of the brain power that we have in this room, are there any organizations that could provide some assistance to that need
Yes.
here today? Or either some feedback or thoughts?
You're not alone. Okay.
We all do, we all do.
Yeah. I mean, they're employed, they're ready to go, and that seems to be the hurdle,
So maybe that's something that we can all take back, and we have a sign-in list, or we can provide you with some contacts, and maybe that's something that we as a community need to be thinking about, right? Is that fair to say that we can't answer that question today? It's on the rocks list. So thank you. That's a great question. And then Sally has the mic. Yep.
Hello everyone, Broderick Flanagan, Athens resident, born and raised here. Been working in the housing space for about 10 years. Was working closely with people in East Athens, trying to stave off some gentrification happening in that area from out-of-scale development. And, got really involved when the infill housing ordinance came up in around 2016, 2015. And so just wondering if we can create some similar protections for neighborhoods so people aren't getting displaced. There was a private investment company that came in about 2 or 3 years ago and bought up several rental units and raised the rent by 25 to 50% overnight, which displaced a whole bunch of people when I was a neighborhood leader. So I was helping people relocate, get moved into new housing. One was a veteran. He moved into a trailer park. And so, there's a myriad of things that put people in crisis. And I wonder, how can we be creative with our policy moving forward? Like we were talking about earlier with the land trust, Habitat, with Habitat. Some of the things we need to do to restrict or remove barriers, but then how can we also be creative to create housing stock that we want and need? And then also I had a question about, I was doing some housing research and I came across the Faircloth Act, and wondering, is that still prohibiting how much the percentage of public housing that can be in a geographic area, and how that plays into some of the public-private partnerships that need to happen, and how we can create policy to spur more development by those agencies or allowances specific to those agencies. I'm working on some policy myself with a local organization, and anyone that wants to be a part of those conversations, I hope will reach out and come and help us out. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Roger. So I heard two questions, I think. Is what can we do to try and address gentrification in some of our neighborhoods? And then I heard the Faircloth Act, and I'm not familiar with that. So yeah, so Sheila, you raised your hand.
Yes, Faircloth, correct. So we use existing, as we build new units and they're associated with public housing, there are so many units that HUD keeps reserved for us so that we can do Faircloth Direct. Faircloth Direct, the white paper states that you do not have to traditionally turn it into public housing, but working with the private investor to help build more affordable housing based upon the number of units that we have on reserve. So if you want to have that conversation, we can have it.
So thanks Sheila. So it's always great to make those kinds of connections. Anybody want to take the gentrification question? Yeah. maybe that's something that we can write down and think about.
What I took from that was, protections for displacement.
Yeah.
And so that's something, some of the purpose of how come we're doing this tonight and opening up for questions is the GIC committee is highly represented here in this room tonight and may take some of the suggestions and as initiatives to move forward to help protect housing in Athens and to create additional housing in Athens. So please take that step.
One thing that with the federal dollars, Sheila mentioned low-income housing tax credit projects. So one thing that has happened, that will continue to happen to avoid gentrification is the affordability period of those projects. Most low-income housing tax credit projects are up to 30 years. And so just the idea of creating more of those type projects can be a source of protection. But as she stated, it's usually very competitive and maybe one project for this metro Athens regional area.
And as part of writing the deals with Athens Housing Authority, after the 15-year compliance period, in order for that to remain affordable, the Housing Authority has first right of refusal so that it comes back to us in order to keep it affordable for the next 15 or 30 years in the future.
Yeah, thank you. So, any other questions? We've got time. Yeah, John?
We know Athens sits at around a 2% vacancy rate in our housing market, and we know that that is because of a shortage of units. We know there's a huge influx of additional residents we're expecting over the next decade, as well as few, at least 300-400 plus people who live outside on any given night or in a shelter. Simultaneously, I notice every time we have new housing developments come forward, we have tons and tons of people who live in the neighborhood that are not happy to see new housing developments or increased density come up in their neighborhood. At what point do we as a community accept that we don't have enough housing and are willing to make the legislative decisions it takes to bring in more density? I know we have the future land use plan, I know we have codes, ordinances, and reviews and such going on now, but I would invite and ask this question of everyone: at what point do we recognize that this has been a problem for a number of years, and are we willing to not only accept but embrace, welcome, and say, yes, we need more housing and I'm willing to accept it in our neighborhood? And I kind of asked that question to everyone of what are you willing to do and when are you willing to speak up to have more density at what cost for your neighborhood?
Yeah, so Bruce Lonnie with Athens Clark County Planning Department was not able to make it. I think he could probably help you answer that question. And I hope everyone has been engaged in the future land use plan, participated in that process. Danielle?
Just as a reminder, the last session is tomorrow at the library, Baxter Street, to give input, and they are collecting comments for the future land use.
Tomorrow at the library, I believe, is the last one of the sessions for the future land use. And if you haven't already gone down to take a look, and if you haven't already filled out a bunch of post-it notes with recommendations about density and infill and all of those fun things, I highly suggest you do. And if you don't have the time to do it, just get online, talk to your commissioner, be very vocal about what you would like to see. So yes, just a reminder that it's tomorrow. Sorry.
Yeah, tomorrow at the library.
At the library, yes. 5:30, I believe it begins.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to make sure I understood John's question. I know you added on the part about the future land use and things that are going on, but I thought I heard you also ask about communities welcoming folk in there.
Everyone. I'm talking everyone.
Okay, so, and I guess, were you asking all of us to
It was just a general
Yeah, it was kind of definitely a rhetorical question. Just generally, like, at what point are we as Athenians, as people who are here at an affordable housing summit, willing to say like we want to see more density in our neighborhoods, and simultaneously we have to also like very much consider gentrification, very much consider all of the multifaceted things that go into this. But you know, we certainly 2% vacancy rate in our housing units is far too low to ever have a truly healthy housing environment where people can get access to housing.
Okay, I just was trying to make sure I understood. Gotcha. I don't have an answer, but I got you.
All right, thank you guys. Anybody else want to weigh in on that conversation, discussion? I think we all right, so we've got 3 more minutes. Is there anyone else with a question? Statement?
Would you
Anything
like
want
to
to say?
do the questions that folks submitted and see if there's any questions?
Yeah.
Any answers from our panelists, for sure.
So we did receive a couple of questions, and I went through those questions to make sure that we had the right folks here to answer some of those questions too. So one of those questions was what policy tools can ensure new developments include units for permanent supportive housing for the homeless? We really didn't dive too deep into homeless, but is there anyone who would be able to answer that question? Or have any thoughts?
You asked it again.
Go ahead, Sam.
You asked the question again.
I can. What policy tools can ensure new developments include units for permanent supportive housing for the homeless? We can take that back with us and discuss it with the GIG committee.
Another one, I think the last one that came in later was one that I was like, oh, that's a good
Local faith.
Yeah.
So how can the local faith community play a part in moving forward towards more accessible, fair, and affordable housing in the Athens area?
So, I'm Dexter Fisher, Commissioner District 5. My church, Ebenezer Baptist Church West, we just purchased 72 acres of land to build senior housing and affordable housing. Now, the issue we're gonna have to deal with is sewer. How do we get sewer to that particular property? And that's gonna be one of our challenges. But we got the property. We're working on the plan right now. It's gonna be a nice community. It's gonna be senior housing. There's gonna be an amphitheater out there. There's gonna be a lake. There's gonna be a housing for kids during the summertime. Come out there and do camps. It's gonna be a retreat area. So it's something that none of the faith-based communities in this community have ever done before. So it's aggressive. Our pastor, he's a visionary. He believes in housing. And I think it's going to be a wonderful project. We had asked some other faith-based communities to come in and partner, and they said no. So, and again, and I ain't getting nobody else Kool-Aid. That's their deal. However, I hope our example will lead the way for other faith-based communities to participate in that type of housing. We was fortunate that property had been in the African American community for over 80 years. And people had been trying to buy, private developers had been trying to buy that property. But we was fortunate that when we went to them, and I was part of those conversations, sit down, and I know the family, sit down with them, told them what our plan was and what we wanted to do, and we closed that deal. So again, 72 acres, and we won't develop all of it. We want some of it to be green space, but we're excited. Our congregation is excited. They're behind it 100%. But I think moving forward, and as you all see what's going on at the federal level, not only are we going to need our faith-based community, but we're going to need our private business partners to kick in. I was talking to Ms. Chris earlier. We got, and this is just my wild idea, we got Miser coming in, gonna employ 1,700 people, starting salary will be 65,000 jobs. Wouldn't it be something that we went and sit down with them and say, hey, we got to house people. Would y'all be interested in partnering with either developers or with us to build some houses somewhere so people that work for that company can stay in Athens? Because we need a tax base. Other issue we got is our surrounding counties is not doing any building. Jackson County, who's growing like crazy, is not doing any much construction. Barrow County is probably doing more construction than anybody. Madison, Overthorpe, County can't afford to go out there because they're not building the type of housing that we need. So our surrounding counties are not supporting enough housing. We'll be the smallest geographical area in the state. It's difficult for us. We're gonna run out of land eventually. Even if we do all the infield. And we got to deal with the sewer issue. We gotta make sure that we get sewer and water to those areas. We got too many people in this community that are on septic tanks. We gotta get them sewer capacity. So yeah. Excuse me, ma'am. Oh yes, it's right off within Commissioner Thornton's District 9. So again, again, our pastor though had that vision, but y'all, let me tell y'all what's crazy. I know about the God. Reverend Holt, who pastored our church for 40 years, he had that vision over 20 years ago. We talk about Ebenezer buying property, doing housing. Well, when we elected Dr. Bledsoe, he just carried that vision out now. So we started the project, bought the land, and hopefully within another year, so we're gonna be breaking ground and trying to start building those homes.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Fisher. So, I want to give, we got one more question? Yep.
If you're interested in faith-based housing development, and your congregation is not able to purchase 72 acres, which is so awesome, I love that y'all did that. Check out Emory Fellowship UMC in Washington, D.C. They built 99 units of affordable senior housing on top of their church. And then Atlanta First UMC also has a similar project happening now. So there's lots of different models where faith communities can be part of this.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and then I'm going to give Commissioner Thornton an opportunity to close the meeting.
Well, you talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I did want to speak on faith-based. I do think that also on Freeman Drive, there's a project called Hope 139, and it is a faith-based housing area. But it's designed for teenage mothers expecting babies that want to keep their babies, and so they have a place to live and learn motherhood. So I do believe when the bigger community sees Ebenezer, Hope 139 contribute to the community, you will see more of churches getting involved. Our second housing conference or summit was at First AME, and it was just dedicated to faith-based churches and organizations building housing. A lot of faith-based churches did not have to buy property because they're already sitting on a lot of property, but they have to pay taxes. So we've got to work around some stuff and see where their hearts really are at some point. But I think this is going to pick up with everything going on. I'm glad Ebenezer West is taking the lead in that.
Okay, and it's your turn to make closing remarks.
And Athens Area Habitat receives donations from lots of congregations. We also have churches that sponsor home sponsorship, builds churches with us. So we would love to have others join us.
Wow, okay. I moved right into there. How many of you know what Project 8800 is? The regular folk. The regular folk. We did, the government sponsored a housing study, and in that study, it says that it takes 8,800 units to address the low to moderate income housing in Athens, 8,800. And so we just felt as though if we keep repeating, people will know how serious we are about this housing issue. First of all, I wanted to make notes so I wouldn't be rambling, but guess what? I'm still rambling. Because I don't know if people understand, when we really started doing these housing summits, it was because of, I like this, what was signed in 1968? Ta-da! I had no prize. The Fair Housing Act. And that was due because of discrimination, primarily with Martin Luther King, and he led that. And who was president? President Johnson, I believe, signed it in 1968. Well, we're still seeing a different type of discrimination. And maybe still racial too, I don't know. I ain't going there with y'all, this ain't a race talk. But with poverty and people just struggling to make it, and they can't. So we like to remember, or I like to remember, why we come together. We just don't come together because we like each other's company, but we should also be building on something. Each meeting should be something. We should see where we're progressing somewhere. So in lieu of that, I did want to at least tell you that this is our 4th annual event, but this year we actually did, I think, 6 type of fair housing events. I think, Marquita, you mentioned about the 2 housing workshops you did in March. We did a housing event, some of you were there, great turnout just like this. And then we did something different. Some of us sat in on meetings with developers and contractors. This was led by your own Buck Bacon, and we heard from the developers and the contractors what they see the problem is. So I do think we are to a great start in doing something. I think our next move should be doing something. I don't want to forget the summit committee members this year. There's Solomon Smothers, wave at us, Buck Bacon, Larry Ford is not here, Fred Smith, Miss Sally, raise your hand, wave at Miss Sally. She is awesome as far as pulling things together. I have no patience whatsoever. She's very detailed, and she's the reason all of you are here tonight. Danielle Glimmer. And Gonzella Stower, she's not here tonight. And I know that Fred is going to be making a presentation at the May, don't look around, Mr. Smith, I was talking to you. I know that Mr. Smith wants to make a presentation at the next GIG meeting, but I think he wants to get with Sally, based on my conversation today, to compile everything that has transpired at all of the meetings and come up with some recommendations. I don't know who did the Council on Aging presentation. That is the first I saw that kind of data and information, and I do know we're going to add it to our pot of suggestions and recommendations. Charles, you also gave good stuff and feedback. We need to take this stuff back and act on it. Now I'm gonna put my fellow commissioner on the seat. You've heard the recommendations, Commissioner Fisher. When I make that motion, you need to just say amen. And we do need to make some changes. The zoning issues are a problem. They are a problem. And I did not realize it was a problem until I started talking to all of you and some other folks. So I'm very passionate about housing. I was not a fan of ADUs earlier. I'm a fan now if we do it right. Infield, I see that project might have left. We're gonna bring that back up. And we need to look at why inclusionary zoning is not doing all that it could do. So those are the things, my takeaway. Everybody should have something. Either you just learn something new. If you don't learn anything, you know 8800 is, right? Or you need to walk back and figure out what you're going to do. And when I call you, please don't act like y'all don't know me. I'm serious. By this time next year, we should have a success report. We should be able to walk around and see where homeless people are being housed at without fear or threats. We should know where people can age comfortably. We should know that we have all contributed. We should lead the way. We, Athens, Georgia, the smallest county in Georgia, we can lead the way to affordable housing if we do what we're doing now, and that's working together. Rose, I gotta give you a holler out, because having a banker around the table with you, that is huge. That is huge. So thank you all. I don't know, Miss Sally?
That's it.
That's it.